She never imagined that a stolen kiss in the middle of a crowd could change everything. A tall, commanding man with grey eyes that pierced through to her soul in seconds. And then, without warning, his lips met hers. Electric, forbidden, impossible to forget. Cameras flashed, the world spun, and Leah Harper discovered that some mistakes are too beautiful to regret. But who was this man? And why did that kiss seem to carry a weight far greater than just a moment of madness? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and become a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt it was really worth listening to, also click the super thanks button. Your support makes all the difference and helps us keep bringing you stories that move you. The afternoon sun bathed the streets of Manhattan in golden light, but Leah Harper barely noticed. The Soho Annual Arts Festival was in full swing, a chaotic symphony of jazz bands, street vendors shouting over sizzling grills, and the laughter of tourists weaving through makeshift galleries. Colors exploded everywhere: crimson umbrellas, emerald banners, paintings displayed on weathered easels. The air smelled of roasted almonds, fresh coffee, and something sweet she couldn't quite place. But Leah was somewhere else entirely. With her phone pressed to her ear, she navigated the crowd with practiced efficiency, her navy blazer spotless despite the humidity, her leather briefcase firmly in hand. "Yes, Mr. Thornton, I understand the deadline," she said, her voice steady even as the amplified chords of a guitarist vibrated through her chest. "The Impressionist exhibit will be ready Thursday. I've confirmed insurance, the lighting crew, and—" A shoulder bumped into hers. She dodged without missing a beat. "The catalogue is at the printer now. You'll have the first copy on your desk by 9 in the morning." Leah Harper was good at this: the balancing act, the constant motion, the appearance of control. At 32, she'd built her reputation as one of the most meticulous curators at the Metropolitan Arts Collective. Her colleagues admired her focus. Her boss trusted her implicitly. Her life was organized, predictable, safe. "Boring," whispered a voice she tried not to hear. She pushed the thought away, swerving around a couple taking selfies, a child with a balloon. A hand closed around her arm. Firm, urgent, unmistakable. Leah's breath caught. She spun, the phone slipping slightly in her hand, her prepared protest dying on her lips as she looked up, way up, into a pair of eyes that stopped time. Grey. Storm cloud grey, flecked with silver, intense and desperate, and burning with something she couldn't name. The man was tall, powerfully built beneath an expensive charcoal suit that fit like it had been made just for him. Dark hair, slightly disheveled, a jawline sharp enough to cut, and a face that belonged on magazine covers, or wanted posters. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low and rough like gravel wrapped in silk. "Please, just trust me." Trust him? She didn't even know. His other hand came up to cup her face, his palm warm against her cheek, his thumb brushing the corner of her mouth with devastating gentleness. Leah's heart slammed against her ribs. Her phone hit the ground, forgotten. And then he kissed her. The world exploded into sensation. His lips were soft but insistent, moving against hers with a hunger that felt both desperate and controlled. Leah's mind screamed at her to pull away, to slap him, to demand answers, but her body betrayed her completely. Heat flooded through her, pooling deep in her belly, racing up her spine. She felt the press of his chest against hers, solid and warm. Smelled his cologne, cedar and something darker, something that made her dizzy. Tasted mint on his breath. Her hands, with a will of their own, rose to his shoulders. She felt the tension coiled there, the barely contained power. The kiss deepened, his fingers threading through her hair, loosening the careful bun she'd pinned that morning. A small sound escaped her throat, surprise or surrender, she didn't know. Somewhere distant, cameras clicked. Flashes burst like fireworks. "There he is! Peter Caldwell!" "Is that his new girlfriend?" "Get the shot! Get the shot!" The shouts cut through the fog. Leah's eyes flew open just as the man, Peter, pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers. His breathing was ragged, his pupils dilated. For one heartbeat they simply stared at each other, the chaos around them reduced to white noise. "I'm sorry," he whispered again, and this time, She heard the truth in it, the regret, the conflict. I couldn't. Mr. Caldwell, is this your response to Sienna's accusations? Reality came crashing back. Leah stumbled backward, breaking contact, her hands flying to her mouth. Her lips felt swollen, sensitive. Her entire body hummed with an electricity she'd never experienced, not even with... No, don't think about that now. Peter moved instantly, positioning his body between her and the advancing photographers. He was a wall of expensive fabric and controlled fury, his shoulders squared, his jaw tight. "Back off," he said calmly, but the command in his voice actually made several people take a step back. Leah's mind spun. Peter Caldwell. The name triggered recognition. Tech billionaire, founder of Caldwell Innovations, recently plastered across tabloids for a very public, very ugly breakup with actress Sienna Blake. Rumors of infidelity, prenup battles, lawsuits, and he'd just kissed her in front of what looked like half of New York's paparazzi. "You," she started, but her voice came out breathless, shaky. She tried again. "What the hell do you think you're—" "I know." He turned to face her, keeping his body angled to block the cameras. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the exhaustion barely hidden beneath that commanding exterior. "I know, and I'm sorry. I saw you and I needed an out. The press has been hounding me for weeks, and I saw you and thought you'd assault a stranger." Anger was starting to burn through the shock, and Leah welcomed it. Anger she could work with. Anger didn't make her knees weak. No. His hand reached for her arm again but stopped just short, hovering in the air between them. "No, I thought... God, I don't know what I thought. That's not an excuse. I crossed a line, a major one." Another flash, another shout. Peter's jaw tightened. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card and a pen, scribbled something on the back. "My personal number, my lawyer's number. If you want to press charges, if you want compensation, if you want anything, call. I'll make this right." Leah took the card with trembling fingers. Embossed lettering, premium paper. The kind of detail she noticed professionally, even as her world tilted sideways. "Peter, who is she? How long have you two been together?" The questions came like bullets. Peter's hand, large, warm, steady, landed on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. Despite everything, despite her anger and confusion, Leah found herself moving with him, letting him shield her from the chaos he'd created. They ducked into a quiet alcove between two vendor stalls. The noise dimmed slightly. Leah pressed her back against the brick wall, trying to catch her breath, trying to think. Peter was close, too close. His presence overwhelming. "I know I have no right to ask this," he said, his voice lower now, almost gentle. "But can I at least make sure you get home safely, or wherever you were headed? The press is going to follow you now, because of me." Leah looked at him, really looked. Saw the genuine remorse in those grey eyes. Saw something else too, something vulnerable and raw that he was trying to hide. "I was heading to a meeting," she said finally, "which I've now missed, thanks to you." "Then let me explain. Please, 5 minutes. After that, if you never want to see me again, I disappear. Completely." She should say no. Should walk away, call the police, call her lawyer. But her lips still tingled from his kiss. Her heart still raced. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the anger and shock, curiosity whispered, "What if? 5 minutes," Leah heard herself say. "And then you disappear." Peter's expression shifted. Relief mixed with something darker, something that made her pulse quicken again. 5 minutes, he agreed. But as he led her toward a quieter cafe down the street, his hand barely touching her elbow in a gesture that somehow felt both protective and possessive, Leah wondered if 5 minutes would be enough, or if perhaps it was already too late to walk away. The cafe was small, tucked between two art galleries, the kind of place tourists rarely found. Exposed brick walls, worn wooden tables, the rich aroma of espresso mingled with vanilla and cinnamon. Leah sat in a chair near the back, her fingers drumming nervously on the table surface, while Peter ordered 2 cups at the counter. She took the moment to observe him. From behind, he looked even more imposing. Broad shoulders beneath the perfectly tailored suit, upright posture despite the obvious tension in every line of his body. When he turned, carrying 2 white porcelain cups, Leah noticed the details she'd missed before. A small scar above his left eyebrow, the deep exhaustion in his eyes, the way his fingers gripped the cups like he needed something to hold on to. "Black coffee," he said, placing a cup in front of her. "Seemed like you needed it." "How do you know I drink black coffee?" A half smile touched his lips. "Educated guess. You seem like the type who doesn't waste time on unnecessary frills." Leah picked up the cup, the warmth comforting against her palms. "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "A compliment." Peter sat across from her, and for the first time she saw real vulnerability cross his features. "Look, I know 5 minutes isn't enough to explain what happened, but I'll try." She waited, the cup suspended near her lips, not drinking yet, just watching. Peter ran his hand through his hair, messing it up even more. The gesture was so human, so different from the polished image of ruthless billionaire the media painted. "Have you ever felt suffocated? Like no matter where you look, someone's watching you, judging you, waiting for you to fail?" "Not the way you probably experience it," Leah admitted, her voice softer now. "But I know what it's like to feel like your life isn't really yours." Something passed through his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Connection. "Then you understand. The split with Sienna was brutal. Not because there was still love there, that had died a long time ago, but because she turned everything into a circus. Every lie, every accusation, every strategically leaked photo. The lawyers told me to keep quiet, not to react, to let the process run its course." He paused, taking a sip of coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "But the press doesn't care about processes or truth. They want blood. They want headlines. And I was giving them exactly that. A pathetic billionaire hiding, running, looking guilty." "Are you guilty?" The question came out before Leah could filter it. "Of ending the relationship? Yes. Of not loving her anymore? Guilty? Of cheating, lying, or anything else she's claiming?" He leaned forward, his intensity almost physical. "No. Never. I may be a lot of bad things, Leah, but unfaithful isn't one of them." The way he said her name, much with familiarity, as if he'd known her for years, sent a shiver down her spine. She set the cup on the table, needing space, distance. "That still doesn't explain why you kissed me." "I know." Peter rubbed his face with his hands, and when he lowered them, exhaustion was naked in his expression. "Today I was ambushed, had a meeting downtown, something important I couldn't miss. But somehow, and I know exactly who leaked the information, the paparazzi were waiting, dozens of them, shouting questions about Sienna, about the lawsuit, about who I'm sleeping with now." He spat the last word with disgust. "I managed to escape, blend into the festival crowd, thought I was safe. But then I saw them again, sweeping the area, searching, and I—" He paused, his eyes meeting hers with brutal honesty. "I panicked, not physically. I'm not that kind of person. But mentally, emotionally, I was at my limit. And then I saw you." "You saw me," Leah repeated, her voice flat. "You were so focused, so completely oblivious to the chaos around you. Talking on the phone, walking with purpose. And I thought if I could just pretend for one moment that I was a normal person having a normal date with a beautiful woman, they might leave me alone." "So you used the first available stranger as a shield?" "Yes." He didn't try to sugarcoat it. "And it was horrible and selfish and completely inexcusable. You didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess, didn't deserve to have your privacy invaded, your picture taken, your name eventually linked to mine." Leah felt the anger melt slightly. Not completely, but enough. There was something disarming about his raw honesty, the way he didn't try to paint himself as victim or hero, just human, flawed, real. "Your plan worked," she said finally. "The photos must be everywhere by now." "Probably." Peter pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then turned it toward her. The screen showed a gossip website, the headline screaming, "Peter Caldwell forgets Sienna with mysterious brunette." The photo showed the exact moment of the kiss, his body curved over hers, his hands on her face. Her expression one of shock and something dangerously close to desire. Leah felt her stomach drop. "My boss is going to see this." "Your boss, your family, your friends." Everyone's going to see it. Peter turned off the phone, his expression grim. And that's why I'm offering you more than just an apology. My legal team can issue statements, can threaten lawsuits against publications that print false information about you. I can make this go away, at least partly. And if I don't want your help, if I just want you gone from my life, something darkened in his eyes. Not anger, but something like loss. Then I'm gone. Completely. You'll never have to see or think about me again. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Outside, the festival music continued, distant and cheerful, completely at odds with the tension inside the small cafe. Leah studied the man in front of her, saw the sincerity, the remorse, but also saw something more. A deep loneliness she recognized because she felt it in herself. The loneliness of living a life on display, of always being on, of never just being able to be. 5 minutes are up, she said softly. Peter nodded, starting to stand. But, Leah continued, surprising herself, I can give you 5 more. As long as this time you tell me something real. Not about Sienna, not about the press, something about you. He froze halfway up, his eyes searching hers as if trying to determine whether it was a test. Then, slowly, he sat back down. What do you want to know? Why technology? Leah settled into her chair, genuinely curious now. You built an empire. You could retire 10 times over. Why keep going? A genuine smile touched his lips for the first time. Small, but real. Because when I was 12, my dad lost his job. Factory closed, bad economy, the usual. I watched him wither away, watched him check bills we couldn't pay, look for jobs that didn't exist. And I thought, there has to be a better way. A way for people to create, build, survive without depending on systems that don't care about them. He paused, his fingers tracing the rim of the cup. Technology isn't perfect, but it's power. It's access. It's the chance for someone like my dad to start over, no matter how many times the world lets him down. Leah felt something shift in her chest, a softening she didn't want to name. Your dad would be proud. He died before he saw any of this come together. Peter's voice was calm, but Leah heard the pain buried there. Heart attack 3 months before my first patent was approved. Sometimes I wonder if the stress contributed, if I'd succeeded faster, maybe— Don't do that, Leah interrupted, her hand reaching across the table before she could think better of it. Her fingers brushed his and they both froze. Don't blame yourself for things you couldn't control. Peter's eyes dropped to where their hands nearly touched. Then deliberately he turned his palm up, his fingers intertwining with hers. The touch was warm, firm, surprisingly comforting. Thank you, he said quietly, for listening, for not just telling me to go to hell. I'm still considering it, Leah replied, but there was a smile playing at her lips. Peter laughed, a rich, deep sound she felt vibrate through the air between them. Fair enough. But while you're considering, can I make you an offer? One that doesn't involve lawyers or press statements? Leah tilted her head, curious despite herself. I'm listening. He leaned forward, his grey eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Let me make it up to you properly. Not with money or lawyers, but with time. Let me show you who I really am when the cameras aren't around, and maybe— He paused, vulnerability naked on his face. Maybe you could show me who you are too. The unspoken question hung between them. Do you want this as much as I do? And Leah, against all logic, against all common sense, found herself nodding. Okay, she whispered, but with rules and boundaries. And if you cross any line again, you'll never have to see me again, Peter finished. I promise. Their fingers were still intertwined on the table, and neither made a move to let go. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. And inside the small cafe, between two people who had met in the most chaotic way possible, something new and fragile and absolutely terrifying began to bloom. The meeting turns into an unexpected agreement, a fake relationship in exchange for a dream come true. 3 days later, Leah was in her small office at the museum, surrounded by art catalogues and lighting samples, when her phone rang. An unknown number flashed on the screen. She hesitated only a moment before answering. Leah Harper. You have a different voice when you're working. Peter's voice was unmistakable, that deep timbre that seemed to vibrate through the phone and straight into her chest. More formal, more distant. Despite herself, Leah felt a smile tug at her lips. "And you have a talent for showing up when you're not expected." "Part of my charm." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Am I interrupting? I can call later." Leah looked at the mess on her desk. Reports that needed reviewing, emails that needed responses, a to-do list that seemed endless. "No, it's fine. What do you need?" "Need?" Peter paused. "Nothing. Want, however, to see you. If you're still willing to give me a chance to make things right properly." Leah's heart jumped. For the past 3 days, she'd tried not to think about him. About the kiss, the cafe, the way their fingers had intertwined on the table like they belonged there. She'd checked the news obsessively, seeing her photo splashed across gossip sites, reading wild speculation about who she was. Fortunately, no one had discovered her name yet, but it was only a matter of time. "Where?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. "My office. Tonight, if possible. I know it's last minute, but I have something I want to discuss with you. Something important." The seriousness in his voice made Leah straighten in her chair. "Peter, if this is about more press statements, it's not. It's about you, your work, and a possibility that could benefit us both if you're willing to listen." Curiosity sparked in her chest, sharp and insistent. "What kind of possibility?" "The kind that should be discussed in person. Please, Leah, just trust me." One last time. There was something in his voice and a carefully hidden vulnerability, a quiet hope, that dissolved her defenses. "What time?" 7? "I'll send a car for you." "You don't need to. I can grab a cab." "I know you can." Peter's voice softened. "But let me do this, please." And so, at 7 that evening, Leah found herself in the back of an immaculate black sedan, heading into the heart of Manhattan. The driver was professional and silent, and she was grateful for the quiet, using the time to calm her nerves and question her sanity. The Caldwell Innovations building rose in the financial district, glass and steel against the twilight sky, each floor lit up like a jewel. The lobby was all marble and modern lines, security guards waving her through when she mentioned Peter's name. The private elevator rose so smoothly, she barely felt the movement. When the doors opened on the top floor, Peter was waiting. He'd traded the suit for dark slacks and a white shirt, with sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing muscular forearms. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd run his fingers through it repeatedly. And when his eyes met hers, something passed between them, a spark of recognition, of anticipation, of unspoken possibilities. "You came," he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. "You sounded incredibly mysterious on the phone." "How could I resist?" A smile curved his lips. "Come in. I promise the mystery's worth it." His office was surprisingly personal for a billionaire. Yes, there was the massive glass desk, the floor-to-ceiling windows with breathtaking views of the city, the shelves filled with awards and framed patents. But there were also books scattered around, science fiction, biographies, philosophy, a guitar leaning in a corner, and framed photos that looked like family, not corporate events. "Wine?" Peter asked, moving to a discreet bar. "Just water, thanks. I'm still technically on the clock." He nodded, pouring sparkling water into a crystal glass and handing it to her. Their fingers brushed briefly, and Leah felt that now familiar heat race across her skin. "Sit." He gestured to a soft leather sofa near the windows. "Please." Leah sat, and Peter joined her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, far enough to be respectful. He placed a leather folder on the coffee table between them. "I spent the last 3 days researching you," he began. Leah stiffened. "That's invasive." "I know, and I apologize, but I needed to understand who you really are. What matters to you?" He opened the folder, revealing newspaper clippings, printouts of online articles. Leah Harper, 32 years old, Masters in Art History from Columbia, curator at the Metropolitan Arts Collective for 6 years, responsible for 3 critically acclaimed exhibitions and, he paused, his eyes meeting hers, founder and sole supporter of the Art for All program, free art classes for kids in underserved communities. Leah's heart beat harder. That program was her baby, her best-kept secret. She funded it with her own salary, worked weekends in a rundown community center in the Bronx, teaching children who would never have access to museums or private lessons. How did you find out about that? It wasn't easy. You keep it very quiet. No publicity, no public fundraising. Just you, 40 kids, and a love for art that clearly doesn't stop at fancy galleries. Peter's voice was soft, almost reverent. Why? Why keep something so beautiful hidden? Leah looked away, watching the city lights twinkling below. Because the moment you make it public, it becomes about money, about PR, about wealthy people feeling good about themselves for helping. I wanted it to be pure, just about the kids and the art. And is it working financially? She laughed without humor. Barely. The space rental is 2 months behind. Materials are expensive. I'm using savings I should really be putting toward retirement. Peter leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gaze intense. What if I offered you a solution, one that could save your program and at the same time help me with my problem? Leah turned to face him fully. What kind of solution? The press won't leave me alone. Every day brings new headlines, new speculation about me and Sienna. My investors are nervous. My board is pushing me to stabilize my public image. And that photo of us... He pulled out his phone, showing the now infamous image of them kissing. It's the first positive thing that's been published about me in months. So you want to use this? Leah said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? For 6 weeks, just 6 weeks. Peter set the phone aside, his hands reaching out as if to touch her, then stopping halfway. Enough public appearances to convince the press I've moved on, that I'm stable, that Sienna's in the past. And in return, he pulled another document from the folder, a detailed proposal, complete with numbers and timelines. In return, I fully fund Art for All. New space, better location, all the materials you need, salaries for additional teachers if you want to expand. $250,000 deposited in an account in your name, no strings attached. Even if you decide after 1 week you can't continue with the arrangement, the money is yours. Leah took the document with trembling hands. The numbers stared back at her, numbers that represented years of financial worry disappearing. Proper art supplies, a safe, heated space, the possibility of reaching not 40 but maybe 100 children. This is... She swallowed hard. This is too much. It's exactly enough. Peter's voice was firm. You're changing lives, Leah. Kids who might never have set foot in a museum are learning that creativity matters, that their voices matter. That's worth infinitely more than any amount I'm offering. But 6 weeks pretending a relationship. Leah looked at him, searching for the trick, the catch. What exactly would that involve? Peter settled back on the sofa, and for the first time since she'd arrived, he looked genuinely nervous. Public dinners, maybe 2 or 3. A charity gala I have to attend next month. Being seen together casually. Coffee shops, walks, normal things couples do, and... He paused. Occasionally we'll need physical contact. Holding hands, maybe my arm around you. Nothing that makes you uncomfortable, but enough to look real. Look real, Leah repeated. Her pulse quickened with the memory of their kiss, the way her body had reacted instantly to his touch. Totally staged, Peter assured quickly, with clear boundaries that you set. If at any point you feel I'm crossing a line, it's over, no questions, no penalties, and the money is still yours. It was too tempting, too dangerous. And yet, why me? Leah asked softly. You could have any woman in New York agree to this. Models, actresses, people actually prepared for this kind of spotlight. Peter leaned in, closing the distance between them, his hand finally reaching to touch her arm, gently, almost shyly. Because when I kissed you, for the first time in years, I felt something real. Even though it was wrong, even though it was chaotic, it was honest. And because when you look at me, you don't see a billionaire or a headline. You see just me. Their eyes met. Stormy grey meeting, determined brown. The air between them felt electric, charged with possibilities and dangers. What if it works so well people believe it? Leah whispered. What if the line between pretending and real gets blurred? Peter's hand moved from her arm to her shoulder, his fingers lightly brushing the side of her neck. Then we deal with it when it happens. Together. Leah looked again at the document in her hands. Thought about the kids. Little Maya, who drew so carefully. Young Marcus, whose paintings overflowed with emotions he couldn't express in words. Shy Sophia, who'd finally started smiling when she created. Thought about her tiny apartment, her mounting bills, the sleepless nights worrying whether she could keep the program running one more month, and thought about the man sitting beside her, complicated, damaged, sincere in ways that surprised her. "Rules," she said finally, her voice firm despite her racing heart. "We need clear rules." Relief flooded Peter's face. "Whatever you need. No appearances without at least 24 hours' notice, no surprises, no decisions about where we go or what we do without my approval." Agreed. No physical contact beyond what's absolutely necessary for public appearance, and I decide what's necessary. Absolutely. His fingers still rested against her neck, his thumb brushing her pulse. "Should I stop touching you now?" Leah should say yes, should set boundaries immediately, protect herself. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Not yet." Peter's smile was slow, melting, dangerous. "Any other rules? At the end of 6 weeks, this is over. Completely. We do a friendly public breakup and then we never see each other again." Something darkened in his eyes, but he nodded. "If that's what you want." "It is." Even as she said it, Leah wasn't sure if she was lying to him or to herself. "So, do we have a deal?" Peter extended his other hand, suddenly formal, back to business. Leah looked at his outstretched hand, strong, scarred, connected to a man who intrigued and frightened her in equal measure. Thought about all the reasons to refuse, all the ways this could blow up in her face. And then thought about 40 children painting their hopes onto canvas. She placed her hand in his. "We have a deal." Peter squeezed, his grip firm and warm. "So, fake girlfriend, when can I see you again?" "How about dinner?" The words came out before she could think better of it. "Public, like you said. We might as well start this right. Tomorrow night. There's a new restaurant in the Upper East Side. Soft lighting, excellent food, and guaranteed to have at least 3 photographers lurking outside." Perfect. Leah stood, suddenly needing space, air, distance to process what she'd just agreed to. "Should I dress to impress?" Peter stood too, walking with her to the elevator. At the door he paused, gently turning her to face him. His hand rose, fingers brushing her hair behind her ear in a gesture that was already becoming familiar. "Leah," he said softly, his eyes searching hers, "you impress me in anything you wear." Her heart stumbled. Was that a rehearsed line? It was the truth. He leaned in, and for one wild moment, Leah thought he was going to kiss her again. Instead, his lips brushed her forehead, tender, promising, absolutely devastating. "Until tomorrow." The elevator doors opened, and Leah stepped in, her legs less steady than they should be. When she turned, Peter was still watching, leaning against the doorframe, that half-smile playing at his lips. "Peter," she called as the doors began to close. "Yes? Don't make me regret this." The doors closed on his response, but she saw his silent words through the glass. "I promise." As the elevator descended, Leah leaned against the cool wall, her heart beating a wild rhythm. She'd just agreed to fake a romance with a billionaire, to lie to the entire world, to spend 6 weeks pretending to feel things that... But that was the scary part. The part that made her question whether she was really pretending. The restaurant was everything Peter had promised. Intimate candlelight casting dancing shadows on exposed brick walls, tables spaced for privacy, the soft murmur of conversation mixed with live jazz. Leah arrived 5 minutes late, intentionally, wearing a navy blue dress that hugged her curves without being obvious, heels that made her feel powerful, confident. A lie. She was terrified. Peter was waiting at a corner table, and when he stood at the sight of her, Leah felt her stomach flip. He wore a dark suit without a tie, the shirt open at the collar, revealing just a hint of tanned skin beneath. His hair was combed back, but one rebellious curl fell over his forehead. And the way he looked at her as she approached, like she was the only person in the restaurant in the entire world, made her legs wobble. Acting, she reminded herself. "This is all acting." "You look stunning," Peter said quietly, pulling out her chair. His hand brushed her bare back as she sat, and that simple touch sent heat racing up her spine. "You're not looking too bad yourself," Leah replied, keeping her voice light, playful. It was easier to joke than admit how her heart was racing. He sat across from her, and for a moment they simply studied each other. The candle between them cast golden light on his face, softening the lines of tension around his eyes. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "You?" "Absolutely terrified." A smile touched his lips. "But I fake it well. I suppose we'll both have to fake it well tonight." Something passed through his eyes, an emotion she couldn't identify. But before she could analyze it, a waiter appeared with menus and water, professional and discreet. They ordered. She chose mushroom risotto, he went with lamb. And when they were alone again, Peter leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "So," he said, his voice low and conspiratorial, "let's establish our cover story. How did we meet?" Leah picked up her water glass, grateful to have something to do with her hands. "At the festival. It was true, technically. But we leave out the part where I assaulted you without warning. Definitely leave that part out." She took a sip, thinking, "How about we bumped into each other, literally. You knocked over my coffee, insisted on buying me another, and we started talking. Romantic, but plausible." Peter's eyes gleamed. "And the spark was instant?" "Let's keep it real. The spark was intriguing. You were arrogant, I was skeptical. But there was something there." "Something," Peter repeated, his gaze locking on hers. "Yes, I suppose there was." The intensity in his voice made Leah look away. Through the window she could see figures lurking outside. Cameras, no doubt. Photographers waiting for the perfect moment. "They're already out there," she murmured. Peter didn't look. "I know. I leaked our reservation to my publicist this afternoon. They'll be waiting when we leave. So this is where it really starts." Leah straightened her shoulders, bracing herself. "The performance." "Leah." Peter reached across the table, his palm up, waiting. "May I?" She looked at his hand, strong, with light calluses, completely steady. Slowly she placed hers over it. Their fingers intertwined, his thumb brushing her knuckles in a hypnotic rhythm. "Don't think of it as performance," he said softly. "Think of it as telling a story, and every good story has truth in it. What truth is in this one?" His eyes met hers. "That I really do enjoy spending time with you, that your laugh makes me forget why I was stressed, that when you walk into a room it's hard to look at anyone else." Leah's heart skipped. "Peter, truth," he insisted. "Not pretending. Let them photograph this." The food arrived, forcing them to let go, but the feeling of his hand lingered. They ate, talked about surface things, work, the city, their favorite restaurants, but beneath the casual words there was an electric current, an awareness of every movement, every glance. Peter told a story about a board meeting that had gone terribly wrong, his voice dramatic, his hands gesturing. Leah laughed, a genuine, spontaneous laugh, and when their eyes met across the table, something shifted. The laughter faded, but the smile remained soft and private. "You should do that more," Peter said. "What? Laugh like that, like you've forgotten to be careful?" Leah felt her chest tighten. "It's dangerous to forget to be careful." "Maybe, but it's also freeing." The waiter cleared their plates, offered dessert. Peter ordered tiramisu to share, and when it arrived, a single perfectly decorated portion with 2 spoons, he pushed it to the center of the table. "First bite is yours," he said. Leah picked up a spoon, dug into the creamy sweet, tasted. The flavors exploded on her tongue: coffee, chocolate, mascarpone. She moaned softly, not realizing it, and when she opened her eyes, Peter was watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. "Good?" His voice was rough. "Amazing," she whispered. He picked up his own spoon, but instead of taking from the plate, he held it out to her. "Let me taste." Leah's heart pounded. Slowly she leaned forward, her lips parting, allowing him to feed her. The gesture was too intimate, too personal, and when her lips closed around the spoon, Peter's eyes darkened. "You're right," he said quietly. "Amazing." But Leah was certain he wasn't talking about the dessert. They finished eating in a charged silence, each shared spoonful feeling like a secret, a step closer to something dangerous. When Peter signaled for the check, Leah felt both relief and disappointment. "Ready for the hard part?" he asked. "The photographers?" "Yes." He stood, extending his hand to help her up. When she rose, he didn't let go. Instead, their fingers intertwined again, natural as breathing. "Just follow my lead. And if it gets to be too much, squeeze my hand twice. I'll get you out of there immediately." Leah nodded, grateful for that small bit of control. They walked toward the exit, and Peter paused before opening the door. "Last chance to run. And miss all this drama?" Leah forced a smile. "Never." He laughed and then opened the door. The flashes exploded immediately. Shouts filled the air. "Peter, over here! Who is she, Peter? Is it serious this time? Look this way." Peter slid his arm around Leah's waist, pulling her close, shielding her with his body from the worst of the crowd. She could feel his warmth through the thin fabric of her dress, feel the solid strength of his muscles, the steady beat of his heart against her back. "Smile," he murmured in her ear, his breath hot against her skin. "Let them see you're happy." Leah looked up, met his eyes, and she didn't need to fake the smile that curved her lips, because in that moment, surrounded by chaos but safe in his embrace, she was happy. Peter smiled back, and then did something completely unexpected. His free hand came up to her face, fingers brushing her cheek, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender, so genuine, that Leah forgot to breathe. The cameras clicked wildly. "Peter," she whispered, "what are you doing?" "Giving them what they want," he replied, but his eyes said something different. "Giving myself what I want." They walked to the waiting car, Peter keeping her close, protecting her. He opened the door for her, and as she slid in, his hand briefly brushed the small of her back, a touch that sent shivers across her skin. Peter climbed in behind her, shutting the door and cutting off the shouts. The sudden silence was deafening. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately, turning to face her. "I am." And surprisingly, it was true. "It wasn't as bad as I thought. You were perfect." His eyes searched hers in the dark interior of the car. Completely perfect. The driver started moving, and Leah realized she didn't know where they were going. "Where?" "Your place, unless you'd prefer to go somewhere else." Peter paused. "Or we can just drive for a while, if you need to decompress before going back to reality." There was something sweet in his understanding, in the way he seemed to know she needed transition time between the public lie and the private truth. "Just driving would be good," she said softly. Peter instructed the driver, then settled into the seat beside her. Not as close as at the restaurant, but close enough that she could feel his presence, his warmth. "First official appearance complete," he said. "How do you feel?" "Like I just jumped off a cliff. And I'm surprised I'm enjoying the fall." Peter turned his head, his eyes meeting hers in the dark. "Leah, don't." She raised a hand, stopping whatever he was about to say. "Don't make this more complicated. It was a good night. Let that be enough." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "For now." They drove in silence, watching the city pass by the dark windows. Leah was conscious of every breath he took, every small movement. His hand rested on the seat between them, fingers curved slightly, and she found herself wanting to reach for it. "Can I ask you something?" Peter's voice cut through the silence. "Sure. Why art? Why is it so important to you that you sacrifice your savings, your free time, everything?" Leah looked out the window, seeing her own ghostly reflection in the glass. "When I was 8, my mother took me to a museum. It was free on Thursdays, so we could afford it. I remember standing in front of a painting. I don't remember the artist, but it was a woman in a field of flowers. And for the first time in my life, I felt possibility. Like the world could be bigger, more beautiful, more meaningful than our small apartment and the bills we couldn't pay." She paused, swallowing the emotion in her throat. "Art saved me, gave me hope when I had none. And if I can give that to one child, just one, then it's all worth it." When she looked back, Peter was watching her with an expression that made her want to cry and smile at the same time. "You're extraordinary," he said quietly. "You know that? I'm just me." "Exactly." His hand moved, finding hers in the dark, intertwining their fingers. And that's more than enough. Leah didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she squeezed back, allowing herself this moment, this connection, even knowing it was dangerous. When they finally reached her building, Peter got out first, offering his hand to help her out of the car. On the sidewalk, under the soft light of the street lamp, he paused. "Same time next week?" he asked. "There's a charity gala. Black tie, very boring but necessary. Send me the details." "I will." But he didn't move, didn't let her go. "Peter, you should go. It's late." "I know." Still he remained, his eyes searching hers. "Leah, tonight. Was it real for you? Any of it?" She should lie, should protect herself, keep the boundaries clear. "Yes," she whispered. "Too many parts of it. Relief and something darker. Desire, maybe," flooded his face. He leaned in, and Leah thought for one wild moment he was going to kiss her. Instead, his lips brushed her cheek, dangerously close to the corner of her mouth. "Good night, Leah," he murmured against her skin. "Good night." She pulled away, forcing her legs to move, and didn't look back until she was inside the lobby. Through the glass door, she saw him still standing there, watching, waiting to make sure she was safe. As she rode the elevator up, Leah leaned against the cool wall, her fingers touching the place where his lips had brushed her skin. 6 weeks, she'd promised. 6 weeks of pretending. But as her heart still raced, as she could still feel the warmth of his hand in hers, Leah wondered how long it would be before she could no longer tell the lie from the truth. 3 weeks passed in a blur of camera flashes and rehearsed smiles. Leah had gotten used to the routine. Peter picked her up twice a week. They dined at strategically chosen places, got photographed at coffee shops on Sunday mornings. The headlines shifted from "Who is the mysterious brunette?" to "Peter Caldwell, finally happy again," and then to speculation about when he'd propose. That last part made Leah's stomach twist in ways she didn't want to examine. But it was Thursday night, and for the first time in weeks, they had no public appearance scheduled. Leah was in her tiny apartment, wearing old leggings and a faded Columbia t-shirt, surrounded by stacks of drawings from her students. She was organizing each child's portfolio when her phone rang. "Peter." "Hi," she answered, surprisingly happy to hear his voice. "Are you busy?" He sounded different, less polished, more tired. "Just organizing artwork. Why? Can I come over?" "Not for work, not for photos, just because I want to see you." Leah's heart skipped. "Peter, that's not a good idea. I know we don't have to do this. I want to do this. Please, Leah, just 1 hour. If you send me away after that, I'll go." She should say no, should maintain boundaries, protect her heart. But there was something in his voice, a loneliness she recognized so well that dissolved her defenses. "My apartment is tiny and a mess. I don't care. I don't have anything fancy to offer, just water and maybe some stale cookies." "Perfect," Leah sighed, but she was smiling. "Okay." Apartment 4B. 40 minutes later, her doorbell rang. When she opened it, Peter stood there with a pizza box, a bottle of wine, and a tired smile that made something melt in her chest. "I thought we could have a real dinner," he said. "No cameras, no masks, just us." Leah stepped aside, letting him in. Her apartment was exactly what she'd described. Small, with second-hand furniture, but tidy and full of color. Bookshelves overflowed with art books. The walls were covered with her students' paintings. A faded blanket draped over a sofa that had seen better days. Peter paused in the middle of the room, looking around, and Leah braced herself for judgment. Instead, when he turned to her, his eyes were bright. "It's perfect," he said. "It's completely you." Something tightened in Leah's chest. "You don't have to be nice." "I'm not being nice. I'm being honest." He set the pizza and wine on the small coffee table. "May I?" He gestured to the sofa. "Of course, let me get plates." When she returned from the kitchen with paper plates and mismatched wine glasses, Peter had removed his shoes and loosened his tie. He sat on the sofa holding one of the paintings, a vibrant watercolor of a bird in flight. "Who did this?" he asked. "Maya. She's 9. Has a natural talent for color." Peter traced the painting reverently. "You're changing her life." "I'm just giving her tools. She's doing the rest." They settled on the sofa, Leah on one end, Peter on the other, the pizza box open between them. It was so different from their elaborate dinners, and somehow infinitely better. "So," Leah said, grabbing a slice, "what kind of terrible day did you have that brought you to my humble apartment?" Peter laughed without humor. "That obvious? You're wearing a tie on a Thursday night. Either you came straight from work, or you're having some kind of crisis. Maybe both." He grabbed his own slice but didn't eat immediately. "My board called me in today. They want me to make a public statement about Sienna to completely crush her narrative. They have evidence, emails, text messages, that would show exactly who was lying about what. But it would be cruel. It would destroy her career completely, even if she deserves it for everything she did." He finally bit into the pizza, chewing thoughtfully. "And I'm not that person. I don't want to win by destroying someone, even someone who tried to destroy me first." Leah studied his profile, the tense line of his jaw, the way his shoulders carried invisible weight. "What did you tell them?" "No. I said I'll keep moving forward publicly, that our, yours and mine, fake relationship is working perfectly to rebuild my image, that I don't need to drag Sienna through the mud to prove my point." And they accepted that. They didn't have a choice. I'm still the CEO. But his voice was hollow. Leah set her pizza aside, turning to face him fully. "Peter, look at me." He obeyed, his grey eyes meeting hers. "You did the right thing. The human thing. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you decent. Sometimes decency feels overrated, only when you're too tired to see its value." Without thinking, Leah reached out, her fingers brushing his where they rested on his knee. "But trust me, it's worth more than any headline." Peter turned his hand over, fingers intertwining with hers. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" "I don't. I'm just honest with you." "Honest," he repeated, his thumb tracing lazy circles on her palm. "That's rare. People usually tell me what they think I want to hear. Then you need better people in your life." A smile touched his lips. "I think I just found one." Heat raced up Leah's arm from that simple touch. She should pull her hand away, re-establish boundaries. Instead, she squeezed back. "Let's finish this pizza before it gets cold," she said, keeping her voice light even as her heart raced. They ate, talked about unimportant things, favorite movies, worst summer jobs, embarrassing childhood memories. Peter told her about the time he tried to cook to impress a girl in high school and nearly burned down his mother's kitchen. Leah laughed so hard she almost spit out her wine. "Okay, your turn," Peter said, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "Worst date ever." Leah groaned. "Do you really want to know?" "Desperately." "Fine. I was 23, fresh out of grad school. A friend set me up with this guy, a lawyer, supposedly charming. We went to dinner and he spent the entire meal talking about himself. Literally 2 hours of his accomplishments, his goals, his amazing apartment. Ouch. Wait, it gets worse. When the check came, he said, and I swear this is true, 'You should pay since you had the privilege of getting to know someone of my caliber.'" Peter nearly choked on his wine. He didn't. He did. And then he was shocked when I threw my half of the money on the table and walked out. "Please tell me you ran into him again and publicly humiliated him." "Better. 3 years later, he tried to hire me to curate a private exhibition for him. I declined so politely." Peter was laughing now, a deep, genuine laugh that completely transformed his face. "You're incredible, absolutely incredible." Their eyes met, and the laughter slowly faded, replaced by something heavier, more intense. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. "Leah," Peter's voice was rough. "Don't," she whispered, "don't ruin this by getting serious." "What if I want to ruin it? Then you leave now, before we make this more complicated." Instead of pulling away, Peter moved closer. His free hand came up, fingers lightly brushing her cheek, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. That gesture that was becoming his signature, something tender and possessive all at once. "What if it's already complicated?" he murmured. "What if I spend every dinner pretending it's real? If I go home every night wanting to call you just to hear your voice?" Leah's heart pounded so hard, she was certain he could hear it. "Peter, that's not part of the deal." "Screw the deal." His eyes searched hers, vulnerable and intense. "Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me it's just me being pathetic and lonely. She should lie, should protect them both from crossing a line they couldn't undo. I can't, Leah whispered. I can't lie about this. Peter's breath caught. So what do we do? I don't know. Her hands came up to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart through the cotton of his shirt. Does this scare you? Terrifies me. Me too. They stayed like that, suspended in the moment, neither wanting to pull back, both terrified to move forward. Then Peter leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Not like that, not that way, just stay. We'll watch a bad movie. I'll show you embarrassing childhood photos, and we'll pretend nothing needs to change. Peter, please, just tonight, let me pretend this is real. That I'm just a guy spending time with an incredible woman who makes me want to be better. The words hit Leah straight in the heart. She knew she was making a mistake, knew she was making everything infinitely harder. But when she looked into his eyes, vulnerable and hopeful and completely honest, she couldn't say no. Okay, she whispered. Stay. The smile that lit up his face was worth every future risk. They settled onto the sofa, Peter grabbing the remote while Leah curled up under her faded blanket. She found something mindless, a romantic comedy they'd both seen before. And when it started, Peter stretched his arm along the back of the sofa. Can I? He asked, gesturing. Leah answered by leaning into him, her head resting on his shoulder. He was warm and solid, and she could feel every breath he took, every beat of his heart. Peter's arm came around her, holding her close but gently, like she was something precious. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, circles, lines, meaningless shapes that made her shiver. You're trembling, he murmured. I'm fine. Leah. He shifted, grabbing the edge of the blanket and pulling it higher, wrapping her better. The gesture was so careful, so thoughtful, that Leah felt tears burning in her eyes. They watched the movie in comfortable silence, pointing out bad jokes, laughing at ridiculous scenes. At some point, Peter's hand found hers under the blanket, fingers intertwining naturally. You know, Peter said during a particularly cheesy scene, if someone had told me 2 months ago I'd be spending a Thursday night in a tiny apartment eating pizza and watching bad movies, I would have thought they were crazy. Regret it? He looked down, his eyes meeting hers. This is the best night I've had in years. Even with all your fancy billionaire life, especially because of it. His hand squeezed hers. You know what the problem with money is. It buys comfort, luxury, entertainment. But it doesn't buy this. This? Real connection. Someone who sees you, not your bank account or your name in the headlines, just you. Leah turned fully, facing him. Peter Caldwell, are you getting sentimental on me? Guilty, but he was smiling. It's your effect on me. Terrible, isn't it? Horrible. His fingers brushed her face again, tracing the line of her jaw. Completely, perfectly horrible. Leah's hand came up, covering his against her cheek. We're complicating everything. I know. In 3 weeks, this is supposed to be over. I know. So what are we doing? Peter studied her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers like he was memorizing every detail. Living. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually living. Leah wanted to argue, wanted to pull back, wanted to protect her heart from what she knew was coming. But as she leaned into him again, feeling his arms wrap around her, feeling safer and more scared than she'd ever been, all she could whisper was, me too. They stayed like that as the movie played forgotten, curled together under a worn blanket, hands intertwined, heartbeats synchronizing. And when Peter finally kissed the top of her head, tender and promising and completely devastating, Leah closed her eyes and allowed herself this moment, even knowing that in 3 weeks she'd have to let him go. The community center in the Bronx was nothing like the places Peter Caldwell frequented. The walls were faded brick, marked by decades of use and little budget for maintenance. The linoleum floor creaked underfoot, and the heating struggled against the November cold seeping through old windows. But when Leah opened the art room door on Saturday morning and saw 40 children's faces light up with excitement, none of that mattered. "Good morning, everyone," she called, setting down her bag full of brushes and new paints. courtesy of Peter's money, though the kids didn't know that. "Ms. Leah!" A small girl with tight braids ran to her, her arms wrapping around Leah's waist. "I finished the painting you asked me for. Want to see?" "Of course, Maya. But first—" Leah glanced at the door, where Peter had just entered, looking completely out of place in his expensive cashmere sweater and jeans that probably cost more than the center's monthly rent. 40 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him. "Everyone," Leah said, her heart racing nervously. "This is my friend Peter. He's visiting today. Is it okay if he watches while you work?" There was a moment of assessing silence. Kids could sense when someone didn't belong. And then Marcus, a 12-year-old boy with paint permanently under his nails, shrugged. "Cool. You know how to paint?" Peter blinked, clearly not expecting to be questioned so directly. "I'm terrible at it, honestly." Marcus grinned. "Then you need practice. Come on, I'll show you." And just like that, Peter Caldwell, tech billionaire, man whose business dinners cost thousands of dollars, found himself sitting in a plastic chair far too small, holding an old paintbrush, a piece of paper in front of him, while a 12-year-old boy instructed him on color theory. Leah watched from a distance, her heart doing something strange and painful in her chest. Peter was completely focused on Marcus, asking questions, laughing when his first attempt at mixing blue and yellow resulted in a muddy green. "No, not like that," Maya interrupted, appearing beside Peter with the confidence of someone who knew she was good. "You have to use less water, look." She took his brush, demonstrating with careful strokes. Peter watched with the same intensity Leah had seen him use in board meetings. When Maya handed the brush back, he tried again, and this time the green came out more vivid. "Better," Maya announced. "You learn fast." "I have a great teacher," Peter replied, and the smile they exchanged made Leah's chest tighten. The next few hours passed in a blur of chaotic creativity. Leah circulated between their stations, offering guidance, encouragement, gentle critique, but her eyes kept returning to Peter. He'd surrendered completely to the experience. His expensive sweater was stained with paint, red on the shoulder where little Sophia had accidentally bumped into him, blue on his wrist where Marcus had corrected his technique. His fingers were colored, his hair mussed from where he'd run his hand through it, forgetting he was holding a brush, and he was laughing. Genuinely, deeply laughing as he tried to paint a bird that looked more like a misshapen potato. "Ms. Leah," Sophia whispered, tugging Leah's sleeve. "Your boyfriend is nice." Leah choked. "He's not—" "Yes, he is. I saw the picture of you guys on my mom's phone. She said he's rich." "Sophia. But he doesn't act rich. He acts like normal people." The girl tilted her head, studying Peter. "I think you picked good." Before Leah could respond, Marcus shouted, "Ms. Leah, Peter said he can bring computer design software for us to try, like real digital art programs." Leah looked at Peter, who had the decency to look slightly sheepish. "If you think it's a good idea," he added quickly. "I didn't mean to overstep. I just mentioned I could easily get some licenses and basic tablets," and Marcus got excited. "Please, Ms. Leah." Maya clasped her hands together. "It would be so cool." 40 pairs of hopeful eyes turned to her. Leah sighed, but she was smiling. "I'll think about it." The kids cheered, returning to their paintings, and Peter crossed the room to Leah. Up close she could see the paint on his cheek, the stains on his expensive hands. "Sorry," he said quietly, just for her. "I know you didn't want this to become about money or fancy technology." "It's okay." And it was true, because looking at the sparkle in the kids' eyes, at the way they'd accepted him not as a billionaire but as someone who genuinely cared, Leah realized Peter understood. He understood what she was trying to build. "You have paint here," she said, her thumb brushing his cheek to clean the blue smudge. Peter caught her hand, holding it against his face for just a moment. His eyes met hers, and something passed between them, something warm and true and completely inconvenient. "Ms. Leah, Peter, look what I made." Marcus waved frantically, breaking the moment. They separated, but as they helped Marcus hang his new creation, a surprisingly good landscape of a sunset over the city, Peter's fingers brushed Leah's. Accidental, but not. Purposeful, but subtle. When class ended and the children left with their families, Leah began cleaning up. Peter rolled up his sleeves and helped without being asked, rinsing brushes, organizing paints, stacking papers to dry. "You don't have to do this," Leah said. "I want to." He paused, looking around the simple room. "Thank you for letting me come. You were a hit. Marcus is practically planning to adopt you." Peter laughed. "He reminds me of my younger self, curious, questioning, hungry to learn things that weren't available. Is that why you want to bring in the technology?" "Partly." He turned to face her fully. "But mostly because I saw how your eyes lit up when Marcus suggested it. You want them to have every opportunity, every tool. And I can help with that." Leah put down the cloth she was using, moving closer to him. "Peter, you're already helping. The money you gave me saved this program, but you don't need to keep—" "What if I want to?" He took her hands, paint staining them both now. "What if this isn't about obligation or our deal? What if I genuinely want to be part of this, part of what you're building?" "Why?" The question came out as a whisper. "Because when I'm here, with you, with these kids, I feel useful. Not like a corporate logo or an investment source, like a person who can make a real difference." Tears burned in Leah's eyes. "You don't need to prove yourself to me. Maybe I need to prove myself to myself." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "You make me want to be better, Leah, more human, more real." She should pull back, should remember this was temporary. But the way he looked at her, like she was something precious and fragile and absolutely essential, made words fail. "Come on," she said finally. "Let me make you dinner. It's the least I can do after you survived 40 hyperactive kids." "You don't have to." "I want to." She echoed his words back to him, and the smile she got in return was worth everything. An hour later, they were in Leah's apartment, the smell of garlic and tomato filling the small space. Leah had improvised pasta. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti with homemade sauce and a simple salad. But as they cooked together in the cramped kitchen, passing ingredients, laughing when Peter accidentally poured too much salt, it felt perfect. "You cook?" Peter asked, watching her season the sauce with the confidence of someone who did this often. "Learned out of necessity. Eating out is expensive." She tasted the spoon, adjusted the seasoning. "You?" "I have a chef." He grimaced. "That makes me sound awful, doesn't it?" "Just privileged." Leah turned off the heat, turning to face him. "But you could learn, if you wanted to. Would you teach me?" There was something in the way he asked, vulnerable and hopeful, that made Leah's heart skip. "Maybe, if you behave." Peter moved closer, gently trapping her against the counter. His hands landed on either side of her, but not touching her, giving her space to escape if she wanted. "What if I don't want to behave?" His voice was low, playful. "Then you do the dishes." He laughed, his forehead tilting to rest against hers. They stayed like that, sharing breaths, their hearts synchronizing. Leah could feel his warmth, feel the tension vibrating between them. "Leah," he whispered, "I need to ask you something." "What? What are we doing?" "Really?" She closed her eyes. "I don't know. Because it feels like we're pretending to pretend, like the fake relationship has become something else. Peter, tell me I'm crazy, that I'm reading the wrong signals, because if you don't, I'm going to kiss you. For real this time. Not for cameras, not for headlines, just because I can't stop thinking about it for weeks." Leah's heart beat wildly. Every instinct screamed to pull back, to protect herself. But when she opened her eyes and saw the raw vulnerability in his face, the words that came out surprised her. "Then kiss me." For one heartbeat, Peter just looked at her, as if making sure he'd heard correctly. Then his hand came up, cupping her face, thumb tracing her cheek. "Are you sure?" he whispered. In response, Leah leaned in, closing the distance. The kiss was completely different from that first one at the festival. That had been shock and impulse and chaos. This was choice. It was slow and deep and loaded with weeks of tension, of almost touches and stolen glances. Peter's lips moved against hers with a tenderness that made her shiver. His hands slid into her hair, fingers threading through the loose strands, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. Leah clung to his shoulders, feeling the solid muscles beneath his shirt, feeling the racing beat of his heart. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Leah," Peter's voice was rough. His eyes darkened. "Don't say anything," she whispered. "Not yet. Just stay for dinner. We can figure out the rest later." He nodded, and when he kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a question, Leah let herself melt into him. They ate at her small table, knees touching underneath, hands finding reasons to brush. The conversation flowed easily, about the kids, about the program's future, about dreams and hopes neither normally shared. "You know what impresses me most about you," Peter said as they split the last piece of garlic bread. "What? You never asked for anything for yourself. All the money I gave you went to the kids. You still live in this apartment, still wear the same worn coat you've probably had for years. Why?" Leah shrugged. "Because I don't need more. And they do. Everyone deserves something beautiful for themselves. I have beautiful things." She gestured to the paintings on the walls, to the well-loved books, to the smile on his face. "Just not the kind money can buy." Peter reached across the table, capturing her hand. "How do I deserve you?" "You don't," Leah teased. "But you're stuck with me for 3 more weeks." His smile faded. "And after?" "I don't know." Raw honesty. "I can't think about it right now." "Then let's not think." He stood, pulling her with him. "Dance with me." "There's no music." "We don't need music." And there in her tiny kitchen, with dishes still on the table and the smell of garlic lingering in the air, Peter Caldwell pulled her into his arms and swayed them slowly. There was no rhythm except their breathing, no melody except the beating of their hearts. Leah rested her head against his chest, feeling him solid and warm and real. His arms wrapped around her, holding her close, and for the first time in weeks, she stopped thinking about deals and timelines and inevitable endings. For now there was just this, just them. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The charity gala was exactly the kind of event Leah normally avoided. Opulent ballroom in a 5-star hotel, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light over designer gowns and jewelry worth more than most houses. She felt out of place in her borrowed dress, a long emerald silk that a friend had insisted she wear, even with Peter at her side, his hand firm and comforting on the small of her back. "You look beautiful," he murmured in her ear for the 3rd time that night, as if he could sense her discomfort. "You have to say that. Part of the deal." "It's not part of the deal." He turned her to face him, his grey eyes intense. "It's the truth. You're the most stunning woman here." Leah felt her face warm. Even after weeks together, after stolen kisses and whispered confessions, he still had the power to make her feel like a teenager. "Peter Caldwell." A sharp voice cut through the moment. A portly man with a bright red tie approached, hand extended. "How delightful to see you, and this must be the mysterious young lady everyone's talking about." Peter stiffened imperceptibly, but his smile remained polite. "Richard. Leah, this is Richard Thornton, one of the company's major investors." "Charmed," Leah said, shaking his hand. "The pleasure is mine." Richard's eyes assessed her in a way that made Leah's skin crawl. "I must say, Peter, you certainly have a type. Brunette pretty, but not as flashy as Sienna." Peter's grip on her waist tightened. "Leah isn't a type, Richard. She's one of a kind." Of course," Richard laughed, completely oblivious to the tension he'd created. "Well, I hope this one works out better. That business with Sienna was a PR disaster. The shareholders were quite nervous." "If you'll excuse me," Leah interrupted, her voice firm despite her growing discomfort, "I need to use the restroom." Peter looked at her with concern. "Do you want me to—" "I'm fine. I'll be right back." She walked away before he could protest, navigating the crowd of expensive dresses and shallow conversations. The bathroom was as luxurious as the rest of the event, marble and gold, liquid soap that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Leah leaned against the sink, studying her reflection. Did she belong here? With these people, with their empty conversations about stocks and acquisitions, with Peter, whose life was so vastly different from hers. "So you're the replacement?" Leah spun around. A woman stood near the mirrors, tall, stunning, with platinum blonde hair falling in perfect waves over a red dress that looked like liquid. Her face was familiar from dozens of magazine covers. Sienna Blake. "Excuse me," Leah said, keeping her voice neutral. "Don't apologize, it's exactly what you are." Sienna moved closer, her heels clicking on the marble. "The plain, relatable girl who makes Peter look more human after our very public breakup. It's smart, actually. His PR team was always good. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you?" Sienna tilted her head, studying Leah like a cat studied a mouse. "You really think he cares about you? That this is real? My relationship with Peter is none of your business." "Oh, honey." Sienna's laugh was sharp as glass. "There is no relationship. There's a PR strategy. Trust me, I've been where you are. I thought I was special too. Leah should leave, should ignore the poison coming from this woman's mouth. But something kept her rooted. Maybe the doubt she'd been trying to suppress, maybe the fear that Sienna was right. "Peter told me about you," Leah said quietly. "About how you turned the breakup into a media circus." "Did he tell you how he cheated on me with his secretary?" Sienna shot back. "About the hotels, the business trips that were never about business? That's a lie." "Is it?" Sienna pulled out her phone, a few quick taps, then turned the screen toward Leah. Messages. Dozens of them. Between Peter and a number saved as A. "I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? She doesn't need to know. This stays between us." Leah's stomach dropped. These could be faked. "They could," Sienna shrugged, "but they're not. Look at the dates. All from 8 months ago, when Peter and I were still engaged, when he was still telling me he loved me." Leah looked closer. The dates were real, the timestamps consistent. Her mind raced, searching for explanations, but doubt was a snake coiling around her heart. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Because you seem nice, and you don't deserve to be the next fool in Peter Caldwell's long line of women he uses and discards." Sienna pocketed her phone. "He's charming, I know. Makes you feel special, seen, but it's all a performance. And when he gets tired of you, and he will, he'll move on to the next one, and you'll be left trying to pick up the pieces. You don't know anything about us. I know everything about you." Sienna's eyes were cold. "Because you are us a year ago, and look how that turned out." Before Leah could respond, the bathroom door opened and 2 women entered, laughing loudly. Sienna gave them a dazzling smile, then turned back to Leah. "Enjoy it while it lasts, honey, but don't say I didn't warn you." She swept out in a cloud of expensive perfume and malice, leaving Leah trembling against the sink. The messages couldn't be real. Peter had been so honest with her, so vulnerable. He wouldn't lie about something like this. But doubt had settled in, cold and insidious. When Leah returned to the ballroom, Peter was waiting where she'd left him. His face lit up at the sight of her, but the smile faltered when he noticed her expression. "What happened?" He reached her immediately, hands wrapping around her arms. "You're pale. I need to leave." "Leah, what? Now, Peter." Her voice came out sharper than intended. "Please." Something passed through his eyes. Confusion, concern, fear. But he nodded, his hand finding hers. "Okay, let's go." They left in silence, Peter keeping her close as they navigated the crowds. Flashes exploded as they emerged from the hotel, ever-present photographers capturing every moment, but Leah barely noticed. In the car, Peter turned to her immediately. "Talk to me. What happened?" Sienna was there, in the bathroom. Peter's face hardened. "What did she say?" "That this, us, is just PR, that you don't care, that you're just using me like you've used others." "That's ridiculous. She showed me messages." Leah forced herself to face him. "Between you and someone named A, messages from when you were still engaged. Messages that suggest you were having an affair." The silence in the car was deafening. "Leah," Peter said finally, his voice carefully controlled, "those messages are taken out of context." "So they exist?" Her heart sank. "You really sent those messages?" "Yes, but not the way Sienna's making it seem. A is Amanda, my executive assistant. Those messages were about a surprise acquisition we were planning. It had to be confidential, so we kept it off official channels." "I can't stop thinking about you," Leah quoted. "That's about a business acquisition?" I was talking about the company. Amanda had found the perfect target, and I was excited about the possibilities. Peter ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident. I know how it sounds. I know exactly why Sienna kept those messages, but there's nothing romantic there. There never was. Then why didn't you tell me about Amanda before? Because she's not relevant. She's my assistant, Leah. Nothing more. But Sienna thought differently, and she clearly had reasons. Peter reached for her, but Leah pulled away, pressing herself against the car door. The hurt in his eyes was like a knife, but she wouldn't, let him touch her right now. You're really believing her over me? His voice was low, dangerous. I don't know who to believe. I've known you for 6 weeks, Peter. 6 weeks of a fake relationship that somehow became this. But how much of this is real? How much is just you being good at pretending? Everything is real, he practically shouted. Every word, every touch, every moment we've spent together, real. Do you really think I could fake this? I don't know. Tears burned in Leah's eyes. I don't know, because your entire life is performance. Meetings where you smile and pretend to like people you despise. Galas where you stage conversations. Even our relationship started as a lie. But it's not a lie anymore, you know it's not. Do I? Leah wiped her eyes furiously, because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what Sienna said. A convenient PR strategy. The damaged billionaire finding redemption with the plain, compassionate girl. Makes a great story. Stop. Peter's voice was broken. Please, stop. You know that's not what this is. You know my heart, Leah. I've given you parts of me I've never shown anyone. Or you showed me exactly what you knew I wanted to see. Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. The driver kept his eyes fixed on the road, clearly uncomfortable. Stop the car, Leah said suddenly. What? Stop the car. I'll get a cab. Leah, don't be ridiculous. I'm not being ridiculous. I just need space. She looked at him, and the pain in his eyes mirrored hers. Please, Peter. Just let me go. The driver pulled to the curb. Leah opened the door, but before she could get out, Peter's hand caught hers. Don't believe her, he whispered. Please, give me a chance to prove it. Let me show you every message, every email, every piece of evidence that Sienna is lying. It's not about evidence. Leah's voice was tired. It's about trust, and right now I don't know if I can trust my own feelings, let alone yours. She pulled her hand free and stepped out of the car before he could protest. The door closed behind her with finality, and through the dark window she saw Peter. Head down, shoulders curved, the picture of defeat. Part of her wanted to go back, wanted to believe, wanted to let herself be convinced. But the bigger part, the part that had been hurt before, that knew powerful men had powerful secrets, walked to the curb and flagged down a cab. As she was driven away, Leah didn't look back. But the tears burning her eyes told a different story. Because believing Peter was lying hurt. But believing he was telling the truth, that this was real, that she mattered, that he actually saw her, scared her even more. 5 days. 5 days since the gala, since the messages, since Leah had walked out of that car and out of Peter's heart. 5 days of deafening silence. Leah tried to return to her normal routine, work at the museum, classes with the kids, lonely evenings in her apartment. But everything felt drained, like someone had sucked the color out of the world. She checked her phone obsessively, part of her expecting Peter to call, to beg, to demand to be heard. But he didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at her door with desperate explanations. And somehow that silence hurt more than any words could. Thursday morning, Leah arrived at the community center and immediately knew something was wrong. Carmen, the center's director, stood outside with a grim expression, talking animatedly with a man in coveralls. What happened? Leah asked, her heart sinking. Carmen turned, and Leah saw tears in her eyes. The main pipe burst last night, flooded half the building, including the art room. No. Leah rushed past them, pushing through the door. The devastation hit her like a physical blow. Water still covered the linoleum floor, inches deep in some places. The children's paintings that had been carefully stored on low shelves were ruined, colors smudged beyond recognition. Paintbrushes floated in the dirty water. The expensive paint she'd just bought was destroyed. Years of work, memories, dreams, all gone. How long to fix? Leah asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the despair climbing in her chest. Carmen exchanged glances with the plumber. Weeks, maybe months, and the cost? She shook her head. Insurance will cover some, but not enough. And in the meantime, we can't use the space. Classes will have to be cancelled. No. The word came out fierce. No, we'll find another place. Leah, honey, there's no budget. We can barely afford rent here. Another space, even temporarily. Carmen placed a gentle hand on her arm. I'm sorry. I really am. Leah looked around the ruined room, seeing not the water and destruction, but the children's faces. Maya, who was finally starting to believe her talent mattered. Marcus, who used art to process emotions he couldn't express in words. Sophia, who'd blossomed from shy child to confident artist. How would she tell them it was over? Leah spent the day in automated shock, making calls, filling out insurance forms, trying to find miracles where none existed. When she finally got home that night, she was exhausted beyond words. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Harper? This is David Chen from Rapid Restoration Team. We're at the North Bronx Community Center and wanted to confirm your instructions. Leah froze. I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I didn't hire any restoration company. Oh. Pause. One moment, please. Muffled sounds, then a different voice came on the line. Ms. Harper, this is the project manager. We were hired to repair the water damage and upgrade the plumbing system to prevent future issues. The crew is ready to start tomorrow morning, but if you didn't authorize this, who hired you? But Leah already knew. Her heart was already beating faster. The work order lists Caldwell Innovations as the client, but the instructions specify that all work should be coordinated through you. Leah sat heavily on the sofa. How long will it take? With our full crew. 5 days, tops. We'll replace all water damage, upgrade the plumbing, add proper insulation for temperature control. That's going to cost a fortune. It's already paid for, Mom. Our only concern is doing the work to your specifications. Tears burned in Leah's eyes. Start tomorrow. And thank you. She hung up with trembling hands. Her phone immediately showed a new message. From Peter. I promised I'd help, regardless of whether you forgive me or not. The kids shouldn't suffer because of our problems. P. No plea for reconciliation. No begging for her to come back. Just action. Silent, efficient, exactly what was needed. Leah pressed the phone to her chest as tears finally fell. Over the following days, Leah watched Peter's promise come to life. The restoration crew worked with impressive efficiency, not just fixing but improving. Freshly painted walls in warm, welcoming colors, new floors that didn't creak, proper shelving for storage, designed specifically for art materials, better lighting, adequate ventilation. And then, on the 4th day, something extraordinary happened. Leah arrived in the morning to find Carmen buzzing with excitement. You won't believe it. What? Come see. In the restored art room, gleaming and beautiful and better than it had ever been, there were boxes, dozens of them, all marked with the Caldwell Innovations logo. They arrived this morning, Carmen said, her hands gesturing excitedly. I didn't open anything, I was waiting for you. With trembling hands, Leah opened the first box. Inside, tablets, 20 of them, state-of-the-art, each preloaded with professional digital art software. The next box contained stylus pens, protective cases, headphones. Another had traditional materials, paints, brushes, canvases, all professional quality. Not the cheap brands she normally bought, but the kind serious artists used. And at the bottom, a smaller box. Personal, addressed only to her. Inside, a single envelope. Leah's hand trembled as she opened it. Leah, Marcus once told me that you teach the kids that art isn't about having the most expensive tools, but about expressing what's inside. He's right. You're right. But that doesn't mean they don't deserve the best tools available. The tablets come with lifetime software licenses. There are preloaded tutorials and a tech support hotline if they need help. Amanda, yes, that Amanda, my 58-year-old executive assistant, happily married, who treats me like an irresponsible son, coordinated everything. She also included her number if you want to verify the messages Sienna showed you. She'll be happy to share every email, every context, every proof that there was never anything but business between us. I'm not sending you this to buy forgiveness. I'm sending it because you taught me something important. Sometimes loving someone means supporting their dreams, even when those dreams take them away from you. Art for All is your dream. These kids are your passion. And I'd be the worst kind of person if I let our personal problems damage something so important. You don't need to thank me. You don't need to call me. You don't need to forgive me. You just need to keep doing what you do, changing lives, one brush stroke at a time. With all my respect and everything else, Peter P.S., Marcus specifically requested that I make sure the tablets had 3D animation capability. That kid's going places. Leah read the letter 3 times, tears blurring her vision. Every word was carefully chosen, respectful of her boundaries, yet still loaded with unspoken emotion. Leah? Carmen gently touched her shoulder. Are you okay? I don't know. She folded the letter carefully, pressing it to her chest. I think I just made the biggest mistake of my life. That night, Leah finally did what she should have done days ago. She called the number Peter had included. Amanda. A warm, maternal voice answered. Amanda Chen. Miss Chen, this is Leah Harper. Peter said you could... Oh, Leah, finally! Amanda sounded genuinely relieved. That foolish boy has been beating himself up for days. Let me guess. You want to see the messages the Witch X used to cause trouble? Despite everything, Leah laughed. If it's not too much trouble. Trouble, honey, it'll be a pleasure. Give me your email. 5 minutes later, Leah's inbox exploded. Complete email threads, text messages with full context, even recordings of meetings discussing the company acquisition. Every message Sienna had shown was there, but surrounded by context that transformed it from romantic to strictly professional. I can't stop thinking about you, was followed by, and your software division's growth projections. It's exactly what we need. Last night was amazing, referred to a successful board presentation. She doesn't need to know was about Sienna, about keeping the surprise acquisition secret until it was finalized because she had a habit of leaking confidential information for media attention. There was nothing, no affair, no betrayal, just Peter being Peter. Passionate about his work, excited about possibilities, using casual language with someone he trusted professionally. Seen enough? Amanda asked when Leah called back. I have. I'm sorry for doubting. Don't apologize to me, honey. Peter's the one who needs to hear it. Amanda paused. He's hurting, you know. Doesn't show it at work, but I see it. The way he checks his phone obsessively, how he looks up every time the door opens, hoping it's you. I've never seen him like this over Sienna. Never seen him like this over anyone. Leah's chest tightened. I messed everything up, didn't I? Not if you fix it. Amanda's voice was firm. But you need to be honest with yourself first. Did you really doubt him, or were you looking for an excuse to run before it got too scary? The question hit Leah like lightning. I don't know. Then figure it out, because that man deserves someone who will stay even when it gets hard. And from what he's told me about you, I think you're that person. But only you can decide. After she hung up, Leah sat in her dark apartment. Peter's letter spread on the coffee table beside printouts of his innocent messages with Amanda. He hadn't betrayed Sienna, hadn't lied about his feelings. And when she'd pulled away, hurt and doubting, he hadn't withdrawn in anger or demanded she believe him. Instead, he'd quietly, without fanfare, proven his love in the only way that mattered, supporting her dreams, protecting the children she loved, asking nothing in return. Leah picked up her phone, looked at Peter's name in her contacts. 3 weeks ago, he'd asked for 5 minutes. She'd given him that, and so much more. Now it was her turn to ask, her turn to fight, her turn to choose love over fear. With trembling but determined hands, she began to type. The Caldwell Innovations building was a fortress of glass and steel against the Friday twilight sky. Leah stood on the sidewalk, looking up, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She'd rehearsed what she'd say 100 times during the taxi ride, but now, standing here, every carefully chosen word evaporated. She only knew one thing. She needed to see him. The lobby security guard recognized her from previous visits. "Miss Harper, Mr. Caldwell is in a meeting." "I know." Leah forced a smile. "Can I wait?" Something in her expression, desperation, determination, hope, made the man nod. 25th floor. He should be done in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Leah paced the hallway outside the conference room, listening to muffled voices discussing quarterly projections and market strategies. She recognized Peter's voice, firm, confident, completely professional. Nothing like the man who'd written that letter, who'd held her face so tenderly, who'd danced with her in her tiny kitchen without music. The door finally opened. Executives filed out, casting curious glances at Leah as they passed. And then Peter appeared, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking tired in a way that made Leah's heart ache. He saw her and froze. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other across the hallway, him framed by the conference room door, her pressed against the window overlooking the city. The world seemed to pause, waiting. "Leah," his voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it properly in days. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." He glanced back to where his team was clearly waiting to continue the meeting. "I'm in the middle of—" "Please." The word came out broken. "Please, Peter. Just 5 minutes." Something passed through his eyes. Surprise, hope, fear. He turned to the waiting executives. "Take 15. We'll finish after." There were murmurs of protest, but one look from Peter silenced them. He gestured toward his office, keeping careful distance as Leah passed. The door closed behind them with a soft click of finality. "You got the tablets," Peter said, staying near the door as if afraid to get too close. "The restoration crew finished?" "Tomorrow." "Yes, it's beautiful, Peter. Better than it ever was." "Good." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "The kids deserve a good space." "I didn't come to thank you for the tablets." Leah took a step toward him. "I mean, I'm grateful. Incredibly grateful. But that's not why I'm here." "Then why?" His eyes searched hers, guarded, but she could see the raw emotion just below the surface. "Why now? After 5 days of silence? Because I'm an idiot." The words rushed out. "Because I let fear control me. Because I listened to Sienna's poison. And instead of trusting you, trusting what we'd built, I ran." "Leah." "I called Amanda." She continued, needing to say it all before she lost courage. "I saw the messages, all the context, and you were right. There was nothing there. Nothing except business and a manipulative ex-fiancé trying to drive me away from you." Peter stiffened. "You didn't need to verify. I told you the truth. I know. And I'm sorry for doubting." Leah took another step toward him. "But it's not just about the messages. It's about me being terrified because this us became real, and real relationships can hurt me in ways fake ones never could." "You think I'm not terrified too?" Peter's voice came out rough. "You think I don't know that in 1 week our deal ends and you could just walk away?" "I don't want to walk away." Silence. Peter stared at her, his eyes searching hers as if trying to determine whether he'd heard correctly. "What?" "I don't want to walk away," Leah repeated, firmer now. She closed the distance between them, stopping right in front of him. "I don't want this to end. I don't want to pretend anymore that it's just business or strategy or whatever excuse we were using. I want you, real and messy and terrifying as it is." "Leah." Her name came out like a prayer. "I love you, Peter." The words hung in the air between them, enormous and fragile and absolutely true. Peter closed his eyes, his breath coming out shaky. "Say it again." "I love you." Leah placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heart racing wildly under her palm. "I love you when you're being all professional and controlled. I love you when you're covered in paint teaching kids to mix colors. I love you when you dance with me without music, and when you protect my dreams even when I'm pushing you away." "Leah." He opened his eyes, and they were glistening with unshed emotion. "I love you. God, I love you so much it scares me. I wanted to call you 1,000 times this week, show up at your door, beg for another chance, but I promised I'd give you space and—" She kissed him, simply rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his, silencing his words, closing the distance that had been torn between them. For one heartbeat, Peter froze, shocked. Then something in him broke. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against him with desperate urgency. His hands sank into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. Leah clung to his shoulders, all 5 days of pain and loneliness and longing pouring into the kiss. It was nothing like their previous kisses, careful, sweet testing boundaries. This was raw hunger. It was months of tension finally released. It was everything they hadn't said, exploding into pure sensation. Peter's hand slid down, wrapping around her waist, pulling her impossibly closer. Leah could feel every hard line of his body pressed against hers, could feel the wild beat of his heart, the tremor in his breathing. "God, I missed you," he murmured against her lips. "Every second, every breath." "Then stop talking," Leah whispered, "and kiss me again." He obeyed, his hands moving restlessly, brushing her back, her hips, her arms, as if he needed to prove to himself that she was real, that she was here, that she wasn't running again. Leah sank her hands into his hair, marveling at the silky texture, at the way he groaned softly when she tugged gently. His mouth moved from hers to her jaw, down her neck with kisses that made her shiver. "Peter," she gasped, "your meeting—" "To hell with the meeting." He pressed her against his desk, hands firm on her hips. "To hell with everything except this. Except you." His lips found hers again, and Leah lost herself in sensation. Her hands explored under his jacket, feeling the warmth of his skin through the thin shirt, the tense muscles of his back. Peter groaned, the sound vibrating through her, sending molten heat through her veins. His hands found the hem of her blouse, fingers sliding underneath to brush the bare skin of her waist. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her mouth, "and I'll stop." "Don't stop." Leah's hands found his tie, pulling it free, then moving to the buttons of his shirt. "Not now." He caught her hands, intertwining their fingers, pressing them on either side of her against the desk. "Not here. Not like this. You deserve better than my office. I don't care where. I care." He rested his forehead against hers, both of them breathing hard. "When I make you mine for real, I want time. Privacy. I want to explore every inch of you, learn what makes you sigh, what makes you tremble." The words sent shivers down Leah's spine. "Peter, come home with me." His eyes searched hers, vulnerable and intense. "Tonight. No rush, no interruptions. Just us." Leah should hesitate, should think about consequences, about lines being crossed, about what this meant. Instead, she nodded. Yes. Peter's apartment was exactly what Leah expected, and nothing like she imagined. Yes, it was spacious and luxurious, floor-to-ceiling windows with city views, modern furniture, expensive art on the walls. But there were also books scattered around, a guitar leaning in a corner, plants in various stages of survival on the kitchen windowsill. "I'm terrible with plants," Peter admitted, taking their coats. "But I keep trying." "It's sweet." Leah wandered to the windows, looking out at the city lights spread below like earthbound stars. She heard Peter approach, felt his warmth at her back before he touched her. His hands landed on her shoulders, thumb tracing her collarbone through the thin fabric of her blouse. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Not for me. You'll be mine, Leah. Completely." She turned in his arms, her hands landing on his chest. "And you'll be mine." "I already am." He bent, his mouth finding hers in a deep, slow kiss that made her knees weak. "I have been since the moment I saw you walking through that festival, completely oblivious to the chaos around you." His hands found the buttons of her blouse, this time without interruption. He unbuttoned them slowly, each revelation of skin marked with a kiss, her collar, the curve of her shoulder, the valley between her collarbones. Leah shivered, her hands returning to his shirt, pushing it from his shoulders. He was beautiful, bronzed skin stretched over defined muscles, a few scars she wanted to explore, learn the story behind. "You're trembling," Peter murmured, his hands wrapping around her waist, fingers sliding up her back. "Good nerves," she assured, her breath catching when he found the clasp of her bra, releasing it skillfully. He stepped back, his eyes darkening as he took in the sight of her. "God, you're beautiful." Leah felt a blush spread from her chest to her face. No man had ever looked at her like this, with awe, desire, something close to worship. "Can I touch you?" Peter asked, and the pure reverence in his voice made Leah's heart melt. "Please." His hands rose slowly, palms warm against her ribs, thumbs brushing the underside of her breasts. Leah arched into his touch, a soft sound escaping her throat. "I like that sound," Peter murmured, his lips finding her neck. "I want to hear every sound you make." They moved to his bedroom, all clean lines and dark sheets. Peter laid her gently on the bed, his body covering hers, weight comforting. "If it gets to be too much," he whispered against her lips. "If you want to stop." "I won't want to stop." Leah's hands found his belt, fingers working the buckle. "I need you, Peter. Now." They shed the rest of their clothes, a tangle of fabric and limbs and laughter when his sock refused to cooperate. And then there was nothing between them, just skin against skin, heat against heat. Peter paused, looking down at her with an expression that stole her breath. "I love you," he said. "I need you to know. This isn't just physical for me. It's everything. I know." Leah pulled him down, kissing him deeply. "I love you too. Now show me." And he did, with hands that trembled with restraint and reverence, with kisses that mapped every inch of her skin, with words whispered against her body that made her blush and laugh and arch into his touch. When they finally joined, it was with an intensity that made tears burn in Leah's eyes, not from pain, but from pure, overwhelming joy, from completeness, from finally being where she belonged. They moved together, first slowly, savoring every sensation, then more urgently as need consumed them. Peter's hands intertwined with hers, fingers squeezing, anchoring each other as pleasure built. "Look at me," Peter gasped. "I want to see you." Leah obeyed, her eyes meeting his, and there in the space between heartbeats she saw everything: love, desire, promise, future. When climax came, it came for both of them in waves, dragging them under and lifting them up simultaneously. Leah cried out his name, her hands gripping his shoulders, and Peter held her through it all, whispering her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled, skin stuck together, hearts still racing. Peter rested his head against her chest, listening to her heartbeat slow. "You're everything I didn't know I needed," he whispered, his hands tracing lazy patterns on her skin. Leah sank her fingers into his hair, holding him close. "And you're everything I tried not to want." He looked up, a smile curving his lips. "But now I'm not fighting anymore." She leaned down, kissing him softly. "You're stuck with me, Caldwell. Best fate I could imagine," he murmured against her lips. They stayed like that as the city sparkled outside, two bodies becoming one, two hearts finally synchronized. And in the dimness of his bedroom, curled together under soft sheets, Leah finally allowed herself to believe. Believe in love. Believe in second chances. Believe that sometimes the best stories start with mistakes, with stolen kisses and fake deals that become extraordinarily, perfectly real. 6 months later. The new art studio gleamed in the afternoon May sun. Glass walls letting natural light flood the space. Spacious work tables, where 20 children created with intense concentration, organized shelves packed with materials that professional artists would envy. The smell of fresh paint and possibility hung in the air. Leah stood near the window, watching Marcus explain 3D animation to a group of new students, his tablet in hand, his eyes shining with the kind of confidence that came from being seen, valued, believed in. Maya was at her easel, working on an oil painting. Her first, a monumental achievement, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. Sophia laughed with a group of girls, all collaborating on a mural that would eventually cover the north wall. "You've built something incredible here." Leah turned to find Peter leaning against the doorframe, suit traded for jeans and a sweater, hair slightly mussed from the wind outside. He held 2 coffee cups, his usual peace offering when he showed up unexpectedly. "We built it," she corrected, accepting the coffee and rising on her toes to kiss him. "You made this happen. I just provided resources. You provided the heart." His fingers found hers, intertwining automatically. Even after 6 months, his touch still sent warmth racing across her skin. How was the meeting with the city council? Leah's smile expanded. They approved. 3 new locations by the end of the year. We can potentially reach 200 kids by Christmas. Leah, that's amazing. Peter spun her, coffee dangerously sloshing, making her laugh. I'm so proud of you. Wouldn't have happened without your initial support, or without Amanda coordinating all the bureaucratic paperwork. Leah settled against him, fitting perfectly in his arms. She's scaring me with her efficiency, by the way, considering stealing her from you. Absolutely not. I already lose you half the week to this place. Amanda's my only lifeline to professional sanity. Half the week, Leah repeated, teasing. Poor baby having to survive a whole 72 hours without me. That's 72 hours too many. He pulled her closer, his voice dropping to that low register that always made her shiver. You know my bed gets cold without you. Maybe you should invest in better blankets. Or maybe, he murmured against her ear, you should just move in officially. Leah pulled back enough to see him properly. Peter Caldwell, are you asking me to live with you? I've been asking for 3 months. You keep saying you need time. I need to make sure we're not rushing. Leah. He cupped her face with his hands, thumb tracing her cheek. We spent months pretending to be together. Then we spent months actually being together. At what point does this stop being rushing and become just our life? She didn't have a good answer for that. The truth was, she practically already lived with him. Her toothbrush had permanent residence in his bathroom. Half her wardrobe had migrated to his closet. She had keys to his apartment. You're right, she admitted finally. I'm being ridiculous. Not ridiculous, cautious, which I completely understand. He kissed her forehead, then each cheek, then the tip of her nose. But for the record, I'm completely sure about this, about us. And when you're ready, I want you to know there's room for you. There will always be room for you. Before Leah could respond, Marcus appeared beside them. Hey, Miss Leah, Peter, want to see what I just made? It's an animation of you two dancing. They exchanged amused glances. Privacy was rare when working with children, and followed him to his workstation. The tablet showed a simple but charming animation, 2 stick figures twirling together, hearts floating around them. It was childish and sweet, and made Leah's heart melt. Marcus, this is beautiful, she said. It's for your wedding. He said it so casually, as if it were established fact. Leah choked. We're not yet, Peter interrupted softly. And when she looked at him, there was something in his eyes. Promise, certainty, future. Later that night, after the children had left and the studio was locked, Peter took Leah to dinner. Not a fancy restaurant with photographers waiting outside. Those days had ended months ago, when the world finally accepted their relationship was real and lost interest. Instead, they went to a small Thai restaurant they'd discovered together, where the owner knew them by name and always saved their favorite corner table. You're quiet, Peter observed, as they shared pad thai and green curry. Thinking about what Marcus said. Maybe. Leah played with her fork. Doesn't it bother you? Kids assuming, people asking when we're getting married. Why would it bother me? Because it's pressure, expectations. And I know you went through this before with Sienna. This is nothing like Sienna. Peter set down his fork, reaching across the table to capture her hand. With her, every step was strategic. The engagement was a calculated move to satisfy investors. The wedding date was chosen for maximum media impact. None of it was real. And with us? With us? His eyes met hers, intense and honest. With us, every moment is real. Every choice is mine, not some boards or PR strategists. And yes, eventually I want to marry you. I want to wake up next to you every day, not just weekends and stolen nights. I want to build a life where your art dream and my tech work coexist and support each other. I want... He paused, vulnerability crossing his face. I want everything, but only when you're ready. No pressure, no timelines. Tears burned in Leah's eyes. How do you always know exactly what to say? Practice. You taught me to be honest about feelings instead of hiding them behind business logic. He stood, walking around the table to kneel beside her chair. So let me be perfectly honest now. Leah's heart stopped. "Peter, what are you—" He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Oh my God." "Leah Harper," he began, his voice steady despite his hands trembling slightly. "I didn't plan to do this today. I've been carrying this ring for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. A romantic sunset, maybe, or some grand gesture. But then I realized there is no perfect moment. There are only real moments, like this one. You with peanut sauce on the corner of your mouth, me completely ruining what should be a casual dinner, both of us awkward and imperfect, and completely ourselves." He opened the box, revealing a ring, simple, elegant, a single emerald stone surrounded by small diamonds. "I don't want to wait for perfection," Peter continued. "I want to spend my life with you, messy and real and absolutely extraordinary. So," he took a deep breath, "will you marry me?" The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners watched discreetly, waiting. The owner peeked from the kitchen, beaming. Leah looked at the man kneeling before her. This man who'd crashed chaotically into her life with a stolen kiss and somehow become her person, her partner, her home. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The smile that lit up Peter's face could have powered the entire city. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, of course, and then pulled her into his arms, kissing her as the restaurant erupted in applause. "Are you sure?" he murmured against her lips. "Because once you say yes, I'm keeping you. Forever." "Well," Leah teased, her hands cupping his face, "then it's a good thing I plan on keeping you too." 6 months after that, on a surprisingly warm November day, they got married. Not in some grand ballroom with hundreds of guests. Instead, they exchanged vows in the new art studio, the very one they'd built together, surrounded by the children's paintings and the people who actually mattered. Marcus was the ring-bearer. Maya scattered petals with dramatic zeal. Sophia held the rings with solemn seriousness. Amanda cried. Carmen cried. Even Peter's manager allowed himself a moment of emotion. And when Peter kissed his bride, not for cameras, not for headlines, just because he finally could, Leah knew with absolute certainty that all the chaotic choices, all the mistakes, all the fears had been worth it, because they'd led her here. Present day December. Leah came home, because it was home now, officially, legally, completely theirs, to find Peter on the couch, surrounded by papers, but with eyes only for her. "Hi, Mrs. Caldwell," he said, that familiar smile curving his lips. "Still getting used to that," she admitted, tossing her bag aside and curling onto the couch beside him. "How was your day?" "Productive. Closed the Korean deal. Investors are happy. And Amanda reminded me only 3 times that I need a vacation." He pulled her against him, kissing her hair. "And yours?" "Amazing. The 4th location opens next week, and I just got funding confirmation for 2 more. We might be reaching 500 kids by summer." "Leah, that's—" Peter pulled back enough to see her properly. "You're incredible, you know that. You may have mentioned it once or twice." They sat in comfortable silence, just existing together. Outside, the city buzzed, traffic and people and a million stories unfolding. But here, in this space they'd created, there was only peace. "Peter," Leah said finally, "Do you still think this all started with a mistake?" He thought about it, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "No, it started with a miracle disguised as chaos." Leah turned in his arms, her eyes meeting his. "And now?" "Now?" He leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that still, after all this time, made her heart race. "Now it's just the best decision I ever made." Repeatedly. "Every single day. Even when I leave dishes in the sink. Even then. Even when I drag you to boring charity events. Especially then, because it means you're by my side." Leah laughed, nestling against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you, Peter Caldwell. I love you, Leah Caldwell." He rested his chin on top of her head. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me a chance. For seeing past the billionaire and the headlines. For teaching me that sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in complete chaos." Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, but here, curled together on the couch where they'd watched their first movie, where they'd had their first real argument, where they'd built their foundation, here there was only love. And maybe, Leah thought as her eyes drifted closed, her body relaxing against the man who'd become her person, maybe that's exactly how the best stories end. Not with grand gestures or fairy tale endings, but with quiet moments, with daily choices to stay, with love that grows not despite challenges, but because of them, with miracles disguised as chaos, and with the absolute certainty that no matter what tomorrow brought, they'd face it together. Sometimes the most beautiful stories are born from chaos. A stolen kiss in the middle of a crowd, an arrangement that was supposed to be just business. Two people who should never have fit together, but who somehow became exactly what the other needed. Leah learned that true love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to stay, even when it gets hard. It's about trusting when fear whispers to run. Peter discovered that vulnerability isn't weakness, but the greatest strength of all. And together, they proved that the best endings aren't planned. They're lived, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one kiss at a time. And you? When was the last time you allowed something chaotic to transform into something beautiful? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and become a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt it was really worth listening to, also click the super thanks button. Your support makes all the difference and helps us keep bringing you stories that move you.